Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of my new series called What the Genre. This is a new thing that I'm trying out where I break down the Save the Cat story genre for various books and movies. Here we go. In case you're not familiar with the Save the Cat genres, these are categorizations of types of stories that were first created by Blake Snyder in his book for screenwriters called Save the Cat, and which I continue to break down and analyze in my novel writing adaptation, Save the Cat Writes a Novel. The idea behind the Save the Cat genres is that there are only 10 types of different stories in all of existence, and every story ever told can fit into one of these types of story genres. For example, you have the genre Dude with a Problem, which are stories that have 1, an innocent hero who is dragged into a very messy situation without asking for it, 2, a sudden event that thrusts the innocent hero into the messy situation, and 3, a life or death battle that threatens the continued existence of an individual, group, or society. So think of novels like The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, Misery by Stephen King, and The Martian by Andy Weir. And you have a genre called The Golden Fleece, which is where most of the road trip, quests, and heist stories exist. The criteria for The Golden Fleece are 1, a road or some demarcation of growth or the passing of time, 2, a team or a buddy that accompanies the hero on the journey or quest, and 3, a prize that's promised at the end of the road. Think of novels like Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien, and even classics like The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. If you want a full description of all 10 genres, check out the link to my website in the description below. So in this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at some of the recent novels that I've read and analyzing their genres so you can see how I approach the process of categorizing novels into genres. Like I explain in my book, Save the Cat Writes a Novel, the story genres are really just a learning tool, another way to help us categorize story, learn from stories that we like, and help us tell better stories. And of course, these are just my interpretations of the novels and the types of stories that they are. You might have a different opinion. The author very well might have a different opinion as well, but I find the exercise of breaking down stories into the Save the Cat genres helps me analyze novels and movies that I love, and then when I set out to write a similar type of story in the same genre, it helps me focus the story and make sure I'm including all the right elements to make it a success. So, in other words, this is all for fun. It's all just for learning. Try not to take it too personally. And if you do have a differing opinion on what genre the stories fall into, I'd love to hear it. Please leave it in the comments below. Without further ado, let's get into the first episode of Save the Cat, What the Genre. The first novel I want to break down is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I will try to avoid any major spoilers as I break down this in case you haven't read it. I was a little late to the love fest of this book. I know it's been a while, everyone's already read it, but I picked this one because it's one of those books that can fit into several genres, which is always fun for me to break down because it's a challenge. I like to challenge myself to find the best fit for it, even if it's not the only fit. It's like my own nerdy writer puzzle. My first impression when I read this novel is that it fits into a genre called the Fool Triumphant, whose criteria are a fool who is essentially just an underdog whose innocence is their greatest strength and whose gentle manner makes them likely to be ignored. An establishment, which is a people or group that the fool comes up against, either within their own environment or after being sent to a new place. And 3, a transmutation in which the fool becomes someone else or something new, often including a name change that's taken by accident or as a disguise. And I think Where the Crawdads Sing fits all 3 of these quite well. The fool or underdog is obviously Kaya, who's an outcast in her town, treated badly by the people of the town, overlooked by being ignorant and backward. People call her the Marsh Girl, and pretty much they all stay away from her. The establishment that she's pitted against is this little town in North Carolina called Berkeley Cove, where most of the novel takes place. And there is this great transmutation where Kaya actually becomes a writer of reference books on different types of seashells and sea life. She does actually have a name change, but we don't really learn about it until much later, and I don't want to spoil anything, so if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil it for you, but if you have read it, you might remember that I'm referencing something that happens towards the end. And of course, she is triumphant in the end by overcoming the establishment that she's pitted against. But again, because I don't want to spoil the book, I won't get into exactly how she does this. So that seems to place Crawdads for me very firmly in the Fool Triumphant camp. But The book also has elements of a rite of passage story, which are typically coming-of-age stories that include a life problem, which is usually something universal like death, adolescence, midlife, puberty, etc. For Kaya, I would say it's her entire family abandoning her that would be her life problem. 2, it usually includes a wrong way to attack the problem, which for Kaya, I would say it's her reclusive nature and the way she refuses to attach to anyone, trust anyone, and barely even talks to anyone. And 3, the rites of passage stories include an acceptance of the hard truth and an understanding by the hero that it's the hero who must change, not life itself. And Kaya does experience this as well by the end of the story, especially when she finally allows herself to trust and be vulnerable to Tate. So yeah, I could see this as a rite of passage story. You could even put this into the why done it camp because there is a mystery interwoven throughout, and stories of the why done it genre are usually mystery variety, featuring a detective, a secret, and a dark turn. But because Kaya is not the one solving the mystery, I probably wouldn't categorize this as a whodunit. So I personally am leaning towards the full triumphant for Where the Crawdads Sing, just because it is the more interesting choice for me. Rites of passages are quite common types of stories, but it's rare to find a full triumphant story of this nature, and I actually love thinking of it as a full triumphant story. What I was most satisfied with about this novel was that Kaya was this ignorant, overlooked girl coming out on top in this community that originally outcast her. Maybe the rites of passage elements resonated with you more, or maybe you found another genre hidden within there that I didn't see. Either way, let me know what you think about Where the Crawdads Sing and its genre in the comments. The second book I'm going to break down is The Bells by Dhonielle Clayton. I read this over the summer and I fell in love with it. Not just the gorgeous, lush descriptions, and they are plenty of that, but also the world itself. It's so vibrant and dynamic and fascinating. If you haven't read this one, Dhonielle Clayton did an amazing job. I highly recommend it. The story takes place in the fantasy world of Orleans, where the bells are revered for their ability to control beauty, a commodity that is coveted above all else. The hero, Camellia, is a belle, and she's vying to be chosen as the favorite, the belle that attends to the Queen of Orleans and lives in the royal palace and is recognized as one of the most talented belles in the land. This novel immediately screamed institutionalized genre for me. These are stories that usually feature a group or institution that is somehow interesting or unique, a choice or ongoing conflict for the hero who is either new to this institution or has been entrenched in it for a long time, and a sacrifice leading to one of 3 possible endings: join, burn it down, or escape. The Bells has this wonderfully decadent institution, which is not only the world of Orleans, but the institution of the Bells themselves, these revered manipulators of beauty. When hero Camellia starts to see some ugly truths and some dark secrets behind the institution, she definitely finds herself in deep conflict with the institution itself and the various people who want to see it upheld, which leads to a sacrifice for her. But again, because no spoilers, I won't tell you if she joins, burns it down, or escapes. You should really read the book and find out for yourself. And the last book I'm going to break down in this first episode of What the Genre is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I talk a lot about the Hunger Games in Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and I placed the Hunger Games in the Dude with a Problem genre. But what about this much hyped prequel, the origin story of antagonist Coriolanus Snow? What genre does this fit into? This one was a toughie for me, and I admit it wasn't immediately obvious as I was reading it. Sometimes with books, the genre jumps out at me, and for others, I have to kind of puzzle it out and run through the checklists of the several genres before I figure it out. I did get some Golden Fleece vibes while I was reading it, similar to the Hunger Games, which also could fit into the Golden Fleece genre because it definitely has a team, which is Katniss and Peeta. It has a prize, winning the Hunger Games, and you could say that the road is the arena where the Hunger Games take place. There are definite markers that track the progress of the games, like the cannons that go off when a tribute dies. But I've always felt that The Hunger Games fits better into A Dude with a Problem. Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, I feel like could be a Golden Fleece, as it has a road, which is also the arena. It has a team, which is Coriolanus and his tribute, Lucy Gray, and it has a prize, winning the Hunger Games. It could maybe be a buddy love, which is typical love and friendship stories that feature one, an incomplete hero who needs another to be whole. You could argue that Coriolanus is this hero. Two, a counterpart, and you could say that Lucy Gray is the counterpart who brings about the completion. And three, a complication that keeps the buddies apart, which obviously is the Hunger Games itself. But that didn't quite feel right to me either, which is how I landed back on the institutionalized genre, which actually is a very popular genre, especially in sci-fi and fantasy. Songbirds and Snakes also has a group or institution, which in this case would be Panem, or more specifically, the Capitol, or even more specifically, the game makers of the Capitol, which Coriolanus is brought into when he becomes a mentor in the Hunger Games. It has a choice, or an ongoing conflict between Coriolanus and the institution. The more he learns about the dark side of the Capitol and the Hunger Games, the more conflict he experiences with them. And in the end, there's actually a huge sacrifice leading to one of the three possible endings: join, burn it down, or escape. And although I won't spoil the book, if you've read The Hunger Games, you can probably figure out what Coriolanus Snow does at the end of its prequel. So those are my first batch of breakdowns for What the Genre, my new series. If you liked this series, please let me know with a thumbs up and I'll create more of them. And if you have a book or movie you'd like me to break down in a future episode of What the Genre, be sure to leave it in the comments. If you want more information about the Save the Cat method or the Save the Cat genres, be sure to check the links in the description below. I regularly post new writing videos, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, everyone, happy writing.